Good. Well, hey, Ted, if you haven't already, go ahead and unmute yourself. And I'm going to just start with just opening, just introducing you, Ted, because actually Ted and I go back a little ways. Ted was a student at PLU about the same time I was, Pacific Lutheran University. And anyway, we, I don't know, had some kind of things in common back there. And in fact, a friend of mine that I got to know, Doug Rasmussen, was, I think at the time I knew him, he was engaged or about to be engaged to your sister, Janine. Is that right, Ted?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
And anyway, I don't know. I think we might have shared a class together, but I'm not sure in the whole legal studies realm there. I think we've talked about this, but anyway, back there, but at PLU. But anyway, Ted and his wife, Nicole, I think you've been a part of Community of Hope. I was looking back about 13 years. Does that make sense? About
That's right.
2009?
Right.
Okay. And they have two awesome kids. Malia is in high school and Jack is in middle school, right? And anyway, I just appreciate getting reacquainted a little bit. I know we didn't know each other too well way back when at PLU days, but it's been good to just get to know you over these 3 years here now, being at Community of Hope. And one other kind of fun fact about Ted, and you can share a little more if you'd like or not, but Ted is the director of the Oregon Rural Electric Co-op Association, and you guys got drafted in to help, solve the world's problems with all this electricity going out. So they asked you guys, I heard, to help. Can you guys help and getting some of the electricity restored? So that was pretty cool just to hear about that and a little bit about your life and in that way too. But anyway, but thank you, Ted, for just jumping on. We're going to have just these kind of testimonials from different people at Community of Hope, just reflection on the devotional for the week over the next few weeks. And so I asked Ted if he would share from one of the devotionals from this past week. So if you'd like to just get us started, Ted, that would be awesome. And thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you, Pastor. I appreciate that. And I'll explain a little later why we didn't know each other very well at PLU. So, so I chose the devotion from the February 18th, Thursday. And so I think if it's okay, I won't read the whole devotion. I'll just read the Bible verse, and then I'll tell a little bit of story. So, and this one's out of various versions. This one is out of the devotion book that I think the pastor has distributed. Passing along the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on a little farther, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who were in their boat mending the nets. And immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired servants and followed him. And that's from Mark chapter 1, verses 16 through 20. So I'm going to just do a little sharing about what struck me about that verse and tell a story that I probably haven't shared with very many people about sort of my life story. I won't make it too long, knowing the time constraints. But the other day I was listening to Hillary's Bible study with my kids. Both Malia and Jack attend that, and Hillary does such a great job. And Hillary asked the kids a question, and I was listening to it, and I knew Jack knew the answer to it, and he didn't say anything. And afterward, I really gave him a hard time, harder than I probably should. I said, "Why didn't you speak up? You knew the answer to that. Why didn't you step up? Turn on your camera, turn on your microphone." And so I told my wife, Nicole, that later on. I was sort of frustrated with him. And she sort of looks at me and she says, "You're asking that kid to do something you would have never done when you were 12 years old in a million years," because she knew me and she knew my story. And my story is from the moment I was born and the moment I went to school, and everything I did, everything I tried to do was not to be out front, to raise my hand, to be a leader or anything like that. I was the shyest kid you'll ever see in your life. And it was, whether it's my Scandinavian upbringing or whatever, this is just not shyness. This is extreme shyness. I was in a school play in 6th grade and I had one line and I botched it. And it was the most humiliating experience it's just like yesterday, I can remember it. And I vowed at that moment in time, I was never going to be a guy up front. I was never going to be a guy sort of leading and speaking and high profile. And everything I was going to do was just going to be behind the scenes. And that was my path. And I knew how to do it. And I was pretty good at it. And I managed to do that in grade school and middle school and high school, and even at PLU, where I was just, again, pastor, just very nondescript, just went along and I knew what I was going to do. And that was just to be behind the scenes and not have a high profile. And so I graduated from PLU and went out, and my first job was I was a writer. So I was a speech writer for a member of Congress. And we were traveling in Eastern Oregon, and he said to me one day, I feel like fill in the blank. I've got the flu. I can't give any speeches today. You're going to give the speeches. And of course, I knew the speeches because I'd written them, but so I had to give these speeches to the Rotary and the Chamber and all of that. And it went along, and it became pretty clear as I went through my career that I had my plan about what was going to happen, and I was going to be behind the scenes, and God had another plan, and he wanted me to follow another plan. And as I sort of went along, and then a few years later, I wrote a book. And actually, it's a book about rural electrification in the 1930s and 40s. And the publisher said, well, you got to go out and speak on this book across the country. And I said, well, can't they just read the book? And they said, no, that's not how it's done. And so I had to go out and, again, follow the path that God wanted me to follow and not the path that I wanted to take, behind the scenes, low profile, not hanging myself out there. And so now today I lead an organization where I have to be out front and I have to be sort of high profile in what I do. And another job that I have that I don't talk about much, it's kind of a side gig, but you have these corporate events you see, and they bring in us celebrities, and they'll hire somebody to lead the discussion along and ask questions and things like that. And I do that for hire. And sometimes that's in front of tens of thousands of people. And I just sort of look at, and my mom was at one of those events a few years ago, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Newt Gingrich or somebody like that. And she came up to me and she says, you're the last person that I ever thought would be on that stage doing that from where you came from. And that has nothing to do with me. It has absolutely to do with God and his plan for me and his plan for all of us. And these fishermen in these boats had a plan on what they were going to do. And they were given another direction, and they were given another plan. And I think everybody on this call today has that kind of story where you think you know what you're doing and you know what you're going to do, and God just has another idea about it. And so that's why that really spoke to me. And so just know that I come from a completely different place than what you think when you see me, hosting or whatever. That's not where I started. It's not what I thought I was going to do. I have such great reverence for the pastor and somebody like Mike that gets up and just has such great gifts and does this with such ease. It never came easy for me. It's not what I thought I'd do, but because of what God wanted me to do, it's what I've ended up doing. So anyway, that's my story. And I appreciate the opportunity to share it. Again, I haven't told that story to very many people, but it really spoke to me. So, and I also have a lot more empathy now for my son and for those that are quiet behind, knowing that their path, they'll follow their path. God has a plan for them too, but I have to be lot less judgmental about that, knowing where I came from. So.
That's awesome, Ted. Hey, keep your microphone on for a moment. I just want to follow up with a couple questions because, right, as long as I've known you, well, especially since I've been here at Community of Hope, you've been this guy that's upfront and just real easily able to converse with people, whether it was giving announcements or hosting, like you said, at church, or even the thing that really blew my mind was how awesome you hosted those variety shows with the off the cuff jokes and all the things. But I guess to your point there again, it's like, we never know what direction God might lead us into. And you were open, even in that instance, in the work life that you were in, you were open to, okay, I'll go up. You did say, I'm sorry if I didn't hear it all correctly, but you did go up and give that speech, right? That yeah. And that probably really, okay, wow, I did this. You surprised your mom and everybody else. But how good that is to acknowledge, just as you referenced the calling of the disciples, it's like, whoa, this wasn't in the script for me that I had written, at least. And look what God does when we are, even in spite of what we perceive as our own weaknesses or inabilities. It's that old phrase, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. Mm-hmm. And I love that phrase that, he equips those who are called. And that's, we see those in life lessons throughout our own lives. And then spiritually, as we trust in Jesus, that he will equip us. He will lead us. His Holy Spirit will empower us to do what he calls us to do. And that's a pretty neat reminder that you shared, Ted. So thank you for that. And I think one other thing, and I'm curious your reflection on this too, as you think about your son, Jack, and you're just trying to be a dad and encourage him, and you recognize, oh yeah, that was me. Maybe even, Jack's pretty, easy to get around kid, and seems to be, likes to be with others and stuff. But I think still there's something about, just like, Jesus empowered or spoke truth into the lives of these, no-name followers, right? That we're going to be followers, but how important it is for us to speak empowerment, encouragement into the next generation. I was just reading an article about that as far as Christian leadership and raising up our young people and seeing that don't be afraid and give them, so to speak, give them the keys to be solid Christian leaders. I don't know, anything that you've seen just about that as you think about being a parent, or just about the next generation. I'm an old guy now. I'm almost 55, and no offense, I know that that's not old to everyone, but I'm not in that younger generation is all I'm saying, and on how we need to raise up the godly Christian leaders as we see the next those. Anyway, any thoughts on that as you think about?
Well, I would just say, I was sort of, again, I listened to the Bible study last night. Hillary had it with the kids, and I was just sort of struck just how extraordinary these kids are that we have, that at least I know through the church, and just how confident they are, and how the models, they're already role models for everybody else, I think. And I see we have the Carpenters on here tonight, and their kids, and the Haynes kids. They're just some really just amazing. The kids are different now, I think. There's just something about them. I'm sort of in awe of their confidence and what they have to deal with. So they're going to shine in their own way, and so we just have to, but I have to fight this, myself. Sort of, I was not my finest moment as a parent when I berated him the other day for not speaking up. So I'm fighting those impulses, right?
Sure. No, that's pretty normal for us as parents. Oh yeah, put myself back in my son or daughter's shoes when I was that age, right? We quickly forget. But wow, well, great reflections. Thank you so much, Ted. And again, it's just good to have these moments here to pause and hear each other's stories, and remember how God is faithful, and he will lead us through all these times, even when we feel inadequate or unprepared or unequipped. Let's remember as believers in Jesus that he's the one, he's the equipper, and he's the one that we can trust in no matter what. And that's partly that theme I'm kind of carrying through the book of Revelation and even in our times we're in now, in certain times. And but our hope is in the Lord. And so again, thank you for sharing that.